Welcome to Memphis Like Gas and Water's Power Up Memphis. I'm your host, Gail Jones-Carson, the Vice President of Community and External Affairs. The aim of Power Up Memphis is to take you, our customers, on an inside tour of MLGW to share our programs and operations with you, our customers. And by doing so, we can all better understand how we function as your utility provider. My guest today is Sarah Woodley Houston, who is the Associate Director of Education and Outreach for the University of Memphis's Center for Applied Earth Science and Engineering Research, or CAESER.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Sarah, explain to us what CAESER is.
Well, thanks for having me, Gail. I'm really glad to be here. So CAESER is a research center at the University of Memphis that specializes in 3 different things. We work on GIS, lots of mapping of our community. We work with some urban analytics, kind of looking at different property boundaries, working a lot with Innovate Memphis. But our biggest piece is really water research on the Aquifer system here.
Okay, so you shared with me earlier that you're here from Austin, Texas,
yes,
and that you're a water person. You love water.
I do.
So what do you think about Memphis?
Well, Memphis has the best water in the country.
Exactly. The best.
It's great.
Big Numa, you hear that? We got the best water in the country.
Exactly. So I'm feeling really fortunate to be here because the project that we're really working on is working to protect it and keep pollution from getting into it. So I'm glad to be here, and being in an aquifer system, you've got a lot less opportunities for pollution to get down into it versus drinking river water. There's all kinds of different types of pollution flowing into it. So I was on a drinking water system that was surface water.
Oh, okay.
It's a little more polluted.
A little bit more polluted, okay.
Yeah.
So about a year or so ago, this Memphis City Council approved a water rate increase that allowed for us to pay the University of Memphis money to research our aquifer. So what all does that research and those dollars cover for our customers?
Great question. So yeah, you're right. It was 1.5% rate increase, and that is about 18 cents per household a month.
Okay.
And so it's coming out to be about $1 million a year.
Okay.
And we are looking at about 20 different projects throughout that whole study area.
Okay, so well, let me ask you, so it's like $1 million a year. Is there a time frame? Is it a 5-year study? Is it a 3-year study?
So right now it's for 5 years.
Okay.
5-year study. And so we're looking at every year we're adding new projects. So in this first year, we've launched 5 projects, and they're looking at everything between groundwater, surface water interaction. So looking at the Wolf River, are there places where that river water starts to sink into the aquifer? If so, is there a gap in that clay layer? And so what this project really overall is looking at is the clay layer that lies above our drinking water, the Memphis aquifer.
Okay, but at some point there was some confusion about that clay layer. So could you explain the clay layer for
Absolutely,
us?
yeah.
Okay.
So right below the ground, about 150 feet down, there's this clay layer that's nice and solid and thick that we previously thought was totally contiguous. There's no way pollution, surface water is going to get down in there. That's one thing about Memphis water.
So that's good, right?
It's still true.
No pollution can get through that clay to our.
But we're learning that there are some natural gaps. We call them breaches. They're natural breaches throughout that clay layer that was probably from ancient rivers that have carved through it.
Okay.
And so, but over the years, more and more silt and soil is filled in on top of it, so they're buried deep down. But that's where you can get some rainwater to start to filter through into those little gaps, those breaches, and get down into the aquifer.
Well, is the rainwater bad?
Well, the rainwater isn't bad, but it's picking up stuff along the way.
Oh.
And the good thing about it all is that it takes decades for that water to move through the system. So rainwater that's going to land today, it's not going to show up into a drinking water well for 10 to 20, maybe even 50 years in those places that have the gaps.
Well, but how long have we had the gaps already?
Thousands of years.
Oh.
We just didn't know about them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so most of the time, like most of the the places in Memphis has that clay layer that's really solid. So you're going to get that water that's 2,000 to 3,000 years old. It's in those places.
And that's what we want, the 2,000 to 3,000 year old water.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so we do some age dating. So part of this project is age dating the water, looking for inorganic compounds that are man-made compounds showing up in that water. So we're testing MLGW wells and saying, uh-oh, are we seeing water that's 20 years old? If so, where's it coming from? So that's some of the studies that we're doing, is looking at age of the water. We're looking at how the pumping might affect some of that contaminant pull down. So, you know, the more you pump in one area, it might pull down that water in the other area faster. So is that
good or bad, or?
Well, it just depends on if there's contamination in there. So is there like an old chemical refinery? Is there an old dry cleaners facility? All this pollution that we're worried about is pre-EPA, pre-1970 stuff, before there was really regulations about how to dispose of it properly. And
so your study is going to be able to detect any of those kinds of things that might not be good for our water.
Correct. Exactly. So, like I said, there's going to be 5 projects we started this year, all looking at little different aspects all throughout the MLGW service area. With next year, we're starting 12 new projects on top of that.
Will you be completed with the 5 this year?
Not. We're going to have 1 more year left for those 5, those first 5. Each project is
so they overlap.
Correct.
Okay.
Each project's between 2 and 4 years long, depending on what exactly we're looking at. Some of these projects are just going to take a lot longer to figure out. So,
how many people do you have working on all these projects?
Well, we've got about 7 right now, and we, after starting next fall, we're going to have almost 20 people.
Oh wow! So that's a good number.
It's a great number. This is the most people we've ever had studying our drinking water source here in Memphis. So this really is the biggest project to look at where these pollution sources could come from in order to keep it out and keep our drinking water the cleanest and purest in the nation. Yeah.
So, should you find something, then what is the next step?
That's a good question, and that's going to be, some of it's going to be up to MLGW, EPA, TDEC, and the City Council to determine. Because some of these things, it might be just if you relocate a well. That might be a better idea than to try to remediate and dig up whatever the pollutant is. But it's going to be...
So say we have a well in place and it's got problems. So instead of digging it up or whatever, we would just start another well or start pumping from another well.
Exactly. So one of the big pieces of this research project through this 1% rate increase is different types of modeling. So we're putting in all of this data into this supercomputer we have at the U of M that can run just all of these crazy variables, and it helps MLGW understand what wells are operating well and which ones might not be. And so that's going to help determine, you know, the longevity and the cleanliness of the water and just all these different aspects of it. So that is actually multiple projects in one, finding all of these variables to really characterize what's going on with the water.
So in addition to working with Memphis Like Gas and Water on these various projects, who are your other partners?
Yeah, good question. So this summer, we are going to be working with Wolf River Conservancy and also the rest of the community. We're opening it up for volunteers too, for that surface water, groundwater interaction I talked about. We're actually deploying these things called seepage meters, and it's these buckets that are going to be put into the riverbed, and if they start to fill up with some water, because they're going to be like deep in the sand, if they start to fill up with water, that means that water from the groundwater is flowing into the river. If they start to lose water, that means that it's seeping down into the aquifer. If it's staying the same, then there's no interaction, there's no breach. But that is going to be 7 teams a day for 2 to 3 weeks, canoeing down the Wolf River, putting these seepage meters in there, and so it's going to be a big, huge logistics nightmare.
So are you going to be canoeing?
I will be canoeing. I will.
So this will be a little fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun, yeah. So we're working with Wolf River Conservancy to get some of their river guides to help us steer our researchers so they can be doing the work. But we're also opening up to the community too. So at our next public meeting, we're going to have a little sign-up sheet. If you're interested, people can sign up and join us out in the river to help with some research.
Wow. So so the community will be able to. They're not going to do the canoeing, though, right?
If they know how, they're more than welcome to.
Okay. So as you mentioned, mentioned the community, let's talk a little bit about the next community meeting, which is scheduled for Tuesday, June 11th at 5:30. Could you give us a little bit more information on that?
Sure, absolutely. So since it is, coming from people's water bills, we want to make sure they know what's going on with our drinking water. And so we are going to be having 2 public meetings per year. This is going to be our second one.
Okay.
So this one coming up, June 11th, like you said, is at the Hollywood Community Center. And it's really just a time for people to come in, get some snacks, get some sodas, and just get to know what all of these projects entail, what's really going on with our drinking water, so that people understand, we do have this awesome resource, but there are threats coming. And we're being smart about this research.
So we're being proactive.
We are, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. So tell me, CAESER, how good is CAESER? I mean, compared to other water research organizations throughout the country, does University of Memphis have one of the best?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really are the most knowledgeable about our aquifer. Because one thing about water is everywhere is so unique. I'm talking about this clay layer and these gaps, these breaches. Not everywhere has that kind of geology. And so CAESER used to be the Groundwater Institute. Okay. And so we've been doing research on the aquifer for 25 years. Very small little pieces here and there. We've worked with MLGW for a lot of them. We've worked with USGS, we've worked with TDEC, we've worked with the West Tennessee River Basin Authority. So we are pretty much the leading organization that knows the most about the aquifer. So you got the best partners on board.
Well, we're grateful for that. And we do want to assure our customers that, number one, we do have some of the best tasting water in the country. Number two, we have safe water from the country, some of the safest water in the country. And so what would you, we only have a couple of minutes left, so what would you like to leave with our viewers about our water, about CAESER, what you're working on? What is it our customers need to know?
Yeah, well, when you see me or other people try and tell you about water, listen for a little bit, because you'll be excited to hear about it once you start to learn more, because this is something that affects people every single day. And
we all are drinking the same water.
Exactly.
I don't drink bottled water. I drink pure artesian well water from my faucet at work, because I love our water.
Yeah, me too. And that's something that people do ask us, is well, do you drink the water? Absolutely. We feel like it is very, very safe. Y'all do a great job of treating it, making sure by the time it gets to our taps, it's the safest water we can drink. So I would say, everybody come out to this second public meeting on June 11th, 5:30 p.m. That's going to be at the Hollywood Community Center. And that first 30 minutes, 5:30 to 6, we're going to have posters of those 5 first projects we've launched, giving you a little insight into what they are, where they're happening, and also what city council districts they're in. So you can talk to your city council district member about, what's going on in your district and potential threats they need to be aware of too.
So is there anything our customers need to do with their water? Or?
Well, conservation is always something. We don't necessarily, as part of this study, conservation isn't a big piece of it, but that's something everyone should kind of be aware of. We have some awesome educational outreach programs, one of which is the Water on Wheels. It's the WOW Mobile. A lot of people have probably seen it around town. And it teaches about conservation, but when you talk to kids, you talk to adults, they know, turn off the tap when you're brushing your teeth, do a full load of laundry instead of putting your favorite t-shirt in and getting that clean, do a full load of dishes. Things like that really, if everybody across the board is doing them, it really makes a big difference to keeping our aquifer water supply levels nice and high.
Which is higher than in some other cities, because I know other cities throughout the country do have a problem with water shortage, and sometimes during the summer months they have to cut back on water and grass and all those kinds of things. But in Memphis we've not had those problems, but probably because we're working on our conservation, so I hope that remains the same. But Sarah, I do want to thank you for coming out and sharing with us this information about our water aquifer and the studies that you all are working on, and trying to make sure we are proactive and that we continue to have safe, clean, good water for Memphis. And again, I want to mention that there is going to be a public meeting on Tuesday, June 11th at 5:30, and it's going to be at the Hollywood Community Center. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so my guest this time is David Wright, who works for Memphis Light Gas and Water, and he is a cross-connection coordinator. And actually, doing research for this project, David, I have learned quite a bit. So could you please tell me, what exactly do you do?
Well, I have several reps that actually go out in the field and do site inspections. And what we're doing, we're going out to our commercial customers to see how our customers are using our water.
Okay.
We have to document this, and by knowing this, the type of hazards that they have within these buildings, with the state book would also require, at that point, if they need backflow protection in place. We make sure those items are isolated from our distribution system, and that these devices, the backflow devices, are actually tested every year and passing reports sent into our office.
So what is a backflow? What does it do? Okay,
a backflow device is a device that goes on your water lines that are in your internal plumbing, actually. They separate potable and non-potable water.
And what's potable?
Potable water is water that you can drink. Non-potable would be something that has a mixture of some sort in it, whether a chemical has been added or some type of contaminants. Right, you wouldn't want to drink that.
Okay, so the backflow, does it?
Right, the backflow, when water comes into the property, and within that property, these items may be mixed in the water. So this backflow allows water to go one way and not allow it to go back into our distribution system.
So this applies to residential, industrial, and commercial customers.
Absolutely.
Not just businesses.
Right. Even at your home, if you have irrigation system, they're required to be on irrigation systems. The state actually looks at an irrigation system as high hazard. You can imagine you have field lines under your ground out there, so pesticides that we spray on our lawns. You've got lawn chemicals and so forth, and not to mention just the water. When water can seep down into those field lines, and if this backflow wasn't in place and we were to lose pressure on our system, it could be a broke water main, high pressure service pump, or a large fire in the area and they're using a lot of fire hydrants. It sets our system up for back siphonage, and those items could back siphonage into our distribution system.
So where exactly is the backflow? Where is it located? Is it on the customer side? Is it on the MLGW side? Is it in the pipes?
Right. It's actually on the customer side behind our meter.
Okay.
And usually, like if it's a chemical facility or something like that, a high-risk, high-hazard facility, a hospital or something like that, the backflow is supposed to be installed behind the meter before the first use of water. And that is what our job is as a purveyor, is to protect our public distribution system.
So before the water is ever used, the backflow must be put in there. So is it ever taken out? Is it in there forever? Or is it just when a new facility is built, they put it in there?
Yeah, there's requirements on the type of facility that this business is going to be, if it's required to have backflow protection. If you have these potential hazards that are listed in this, and that our state recognizes as potential hazards, then you would be required to have a backflow behind your meter installed before the first use of water. Now, these devices are also internally inside a building as well. You may have boilers, a chiller system, and they're required to have backflow protection on them to protect the internal employees from potential hazards that could, get into the drinking water within a premise.
So actually, a backflow could be in a facility or for many, many years. So how are they tested to make sure they're still working, or?
Absolutely. The devices are required to be tested annually. A double check assembly, which is a type of backflow protection. It is, in our system, they're usually on fire systems and stuff like that. They're required to be tested every 6 months.
Okay.
It's a little bit structured different, this type of backflow. It doesn't have a relief valve on it. Usually when a backflow is failing, it will leak from the relief valve. And the double check assembly doesn't have that. So in our system, we're not sure if that device is, if it's failing or not. So we require it to be tested twice a year.
Well, how do our residential customers, just a regular homeowner, know if their backflow is not working?
Like we said, we were supposed to be tested annually.
Well, okay, so when you do the testing, does that mean an MLGW staffer goes out and test every home every year?
No, man, actually, we have about 500 testers, I would say, of backflow devices. They hold a state certification. They're in our public. They work for irrigation companies, plumbing companies, fire protection companies.
Oh, so they're not just MLGW employees?
Right, yeah, right.
Oh, okay. And so they're checking all year round all of our customers,
Properties, yes, ma'am. And once we're made aware of these properties that have backflows, on their property, we put those into our system and we send out letters. We send a 90-day reminder, a 45-day reminder, and a 15-day letter out to our customers, let them know it's time for them to test their backflow.
Oh, okay. And so what if they don't test it?
Well, actually, the state says...
Well, let me ask you this before you answer that. Okay, so you let the customer know it's time for your backflow to be tested. But we got about 500 people who does the testing. So are they supposed to contact those people?
Actually, when we mail the letters out to the customers, they either have an irrigation company that takes care of their irrigation, or some of these companies, like bigger, larger buildings, hospitals, and so forth, usually have plumbing staff and so forth. So someone usually on their staff is a certified tester recognized by the state of Tennessee to test a backflow.
What if they don't test it once a year?
Then we're at that point. Then we're supposed to. We give them a 90-day letter, a 45-day letter, a 15-day letter. Then we give them like an auto call and a door knocker, and then if they're non-compliant, I usually give them a personal phone call as well. But if they're non-compliant, we're actually supposed to cut their water off.
But you cut their water off. So how do you know if they haven't done it? Do they have something to prove to the utility that we have had our backflow tested?
Yes, ma'am. They send in a test and maintenance report, and when they test...
I'm a customer.
Okay.
I don't think I ever had my backflow tested.
Do we know about your backflow?
Do I have one?
I don't know. Do you have an irrigation system?
No.
Well, then you wouldn't have one.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm not violating anything. So if I don't have an irrigation system, I don't have a backflow issue, and I don't need to be calling anyone to test it, I don't need to call, I guess, well, I'm good.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm good. Okay. All right. But these other companies, organizations that have a backflow, if they do not test once a year, you all will know because they haven't alerted you all, and there's a possibility that their water can be shut off.
Yes, ma'am. They actually send those test reports in to Light, Gas, and Water.
Okay.
And so we have a room where we keep 5 years worth of records. And yeah, it's a lot of filing. But they actually send these reports in. We have in our system, whether or not they have tested and a passing report has been received. And we're actually doing web testing now where they can submit it in online. The testers can.
Oh, so that's good. So that makes it convenient for our customers. So what do our customers... So customers who have a backflow, they pretty much know they have a backflow.
Yes, ma'am. And true enough, there's devices out there that we're not aware of, and we as part of the job of our reps, we go out and we actually do field studies, neighborhood studies, and we go out to these businesses that are in MLGW's water system.
So tell our customers, what is it they need to know? What is it they need to do when it comes to their water? Because this is basically making sure our water is clean and pure going into the facility. And that
we keep it that way.
And that we keep it that way.
Right. So these devices are in place to isolate that hazard from your drinking water. And so that's your family drinks this water, my family drinks the water. Yeah. So we want to make sure that this water stays in the great quality that it's in.
So it has nothing to do with our aquifer. It has nothing to do with the clay layers. It's just water going. Is it water coming from the utility going to the home?
It's water coming from our distribution system, feeding the homes that are in our water system.
So this is just another step that ensures that our drinking water that comes into our home is clean, is safe, and is good.
That's right. And we kind of have a saying. Once we give you water, we don't want it back. That's cross connection.
Okay, so that's cross. So tell me, how old is MLGW's cross connection program? Because actually, to be honest with you, as long as I've been in Memphis Like Gas and Water, I've not heard about the cross connection program. I do know that we have extensive testing of water at Memphis Like Gas and Water. Alonzo Weaver, I think it was him, or maybe probably Nick Newman, told me that we do over 40,000 tests a year on our water. So I know we do everything humanly possible possible to make sure our water is safe and good. So the cross connection program, that's just another step that we take to make sure our water is safe.
Right. We kind of joke sometimes and call ourselves the water police. You know, we want to keep, you know, make sure that that these backflows are in place that protect our public distribution system, our drinking water, and that they are being tested, and we have record of that.
Well, that's very, very good, and I'm glad to hear that we have additional programs, additional steps that we take to make sure that our drinking water, that all of us drink. Do you drink bottled water?
I do sometimes.
Don't tell Nick.
But I mean, I like our new water fountains. But anyway, I try not to drink the bottled water. I mean, you know, our water lab did some tests years ago on the quality of your bottled drinking water, and actually the standard for the water that comes out of your faucet is higher than what the requirements are for bottled water.
Oh, really? That's Memphis water, right? Okay, well, I'm really glad to hear all of this wonderful information that we are sharing today with our customers about our water, because I always want, Memphis Like Gas and Water always wants our customers to know that we have good water, best tasting water, and that it's safe.
Yes, ma'am.
And we do all the testing that we can to make sure that it meets all the state, federal, and local guidelines to keep our water safe. So is there anything else you want to tell our customers, anything they need to know about the Cross Connection program, anything they need to be doing to make sure that their water is continued to be safe?
Right. I just would like to say that, you know, it's all of our responsibility to actually protect the public drinking water. You know, the way that things are in place, sometimes you use a hose-in sprayer. You need to make sure that items like that can't get back into the distribution system or your water within your premise.
Okay.
You know, and so if you had questions, you could call our office. We could go out and you know, do a site inspection and take a look at anything that may concern you that we could take a look at.
Okay, so what number should our customers call if they want to find anything about
I'm sorry, they could call our office number, which is 528-7757.
528
7757.
7757. Okay, thank you.
Be happy to help them.
Thank you so much, David, for coming out and sharing this information with us. I greatly appreciate it. I'm sure our customers appreciate learning new and different things about our wonderful water, Memphis Like Gas and Water.
Well, thank you for having me out today.
Okay. And now, here's a power moment to help you better understand how MLGW works to help you, our customer. Per MLGW policies, along with all local, state, and federal regulations, MLGW's Cross Connection Control Program does not require customers to provide adequate protection of the water distribution system. This is a myth. The fact is, MLGW policies, including local, state, and federal regulations, require devices to be tested per requirements of the Tennessee Department of Conservation. Any residential, commercial, or industrial customer that refuses to comply and have the devices tested is subject to having their water shut off until the devices are in compliance. And those customers are also charged a reconnection fee if the services are disconnected due to cross-connection non-compliance. Thank you for watching this month's Power Up Memphis. I'm Gail Jones-Carson.
You're watching the Library Channel, a broadcast service of the Memphis Public Libraries and the City of Memphis.